Hey everyone, welcome back to another Pisces USA live stream. If you love aquascaping and want to level up your skills, you are in the right place because we got Shelby Brown in the house. Over the past 2 weeks, we talked about the top four winners, the top three, and then the People's Choice Award from the Aquatic Expo Aquascaping Competition. But we want to talk about all the aquascapes because they were all absolutely incredible. We're really focusing on how to improve aquascaping too. So even the most beautiful aquascape still has some tweaks and that could be made to just take it a little bit higher level. And that's what we're trying to do is make sure that everybody has ideas if you ever want to join your own aquascaping competition, which we hope you all will, that you kind of know what to expect. So today we're kicking off a two-part series where we break down the last 6 contestants and dive deep into their strengths, areas of improvement, and what we can all learn from them. Again, I want to give a huge thank you to Jen Williams for organizing the event. The sponsors were Glass Cages, Tropic Aquarium Plants, Awasi North America, Higer, and Aquatic Gardeners Association. And as you can see here, some of the judges hard at work in this photo. Balin Shaw, David Bono, and Therese Neal. We love all of them so very much, and we can't say enough thank yous to everybody. Hey everybody in the chat. You're getting your name yelled in all the letters. Shelby. So our goal is to help you become a better aquascaper by analyzing the competition layout. So grab something to drink, give us any questions in the chat, and let's get started. All right, who was the first person we were going to talk about? Shelby?
I believe that was Ashley.
All right, let's see. Let me change this out to Ashley. All right.
Beautiful aquascape. She did a really good job, really good layout there with the wood. Her Cory cat stole the show on this, that's for sure. So many people were just so fascinated by the Cory cats.
Yeah, they were beautiful.
Her whole idea for the scape was to do more of a planted nature style scape. Some more use of just plants and wood without rocks. That is very hard to achieve when you're doing an aquascape, and especially in an aquascaping contest. Some supplies are not going to be enough for you, especially plants. Most of these they're from nurseries, so they're not grown out plants. So, and then you got to remember you're also with a bunch of contestants. So these were 10 tanks and some plants, and they're all provided for the contest, and they necessarily won't have the plants you're actually looking for. So to go in with a plan, it might not be able to execute it very well, just on the fact that they might not have that specific plant or enough of the plant, because you got to split it with the team. Most aquascapes competitions, people do share pretty well, so if they're not using it, they'll give you what's left over, but you can't count on that when you're in an aquascaping contest, and that could have you fall short real quick if that was your whole plan, so it's hard to execute some things. Well, the reason this one ended up in the top 3 is the major part is the amount of substrate, especially in the front of the tank. This goes all the way around and is even more in the back. So that's a big part that was, I think, a lot of people's flaws that didn't make it into the top 3. They don't want to see that much substrate in aquascaping. It's very rare that.
Shelby, they're saying like you sound great to me, so it might be that I need to change some settings on our side, but they said you sound really far away.
I'll just put it closer to my face. I normally don't pull my mic up, but if it helps, it helps. Hopefully that's a little bit better for you. So with any aquascape, usually you want to create an illusion. If you have so much sand in the front, it really takes away so much of that. It is where you have plants, are you normally in the back or on the side?
Shelby, try like tapping on the microphone and see if it's... Do it harder. I didn't hear that at all. I can kind of hear it, but I would think I would hear it. It is picking up or isn't?
Yeah, it's got the full bars on it.
Look on Skype and see if it's connected to that microphone or your camera microphone.
Okay.
What's a live stream without some technical difficulties?
Mic sounds like it's a phone. That's not good. No, it's saying that it's picking up on this mic.
Huh.
Uh-oh. Maybe it's my cord.
Can y'all hear her at least? It just sounds bad. Every time one of our mics don't work. Gotta go shovel all the snow, huh? I can't hear you at all now. Can't, no audio. We should have just left it alone. Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay. Is it better?
You sound the same to me, and it wasn't bad to before, so... What do y'all think? Just keep talking, see what they say.
Hello? Just a little quiet. That's so strange.
I can get the volume up more. Let's see, is it... Sorry, you guys, if I bust your eardrums. How's that?
Hello?
It's got to be picking up sound from the camera. So she sounds totally normal on my output, so I don't know what the problem is.
That is so strange.
Unless it's only picking up your audio from my mic, maybe?
Oh, maybe.
Shelby's at the end of the hallway.
Yeah, something's got to be messed up through Skype because it's picking up on the mic all the way. Change settings. Does that help it at all?
You still sound the same to me, which is good.
Now there's an echo. Uh-oh.
Now there's an echo?
Hello?
Does that make the echo go away? Hello, people. Testing. 1, 2, 3. All the fishies. Hopefully that fixed it. Fun. Yes, good. Okay.
Okay.
Good enough to at least talk about the aquascapes, huh?
Yeah. That's crazy. I wonder what happened. That's so weird. Hopefully everyone heard me about the substrate. Okay, cool. Echo's gone. At least that's working. So hopefully I'll just talk a little bit louder. Oh, great. Now the noise isn't canceling.
Oh, it's probably my tank behind me. That hasn't been there, so it might have something to do with the noise cancellation.
Yeah, my bubbles are really loud if I don't have that noise cancellation on those. So hopefully it's not too big of a problem this week, and we'll test it again next week.
Well, next week we won't have it because I think we're traveling to Denver.
I forgot about that.
So, all
Um,
right.
so,
So
well,
Ashley's tank, you said there's so they don't like seeing this much substrate, right?
yeah, there's just no need for it to be that much in the front of the tank. Like, it's okay for a home tank. That's no problem. Aquascaping, it takes a lot of you gotta think of it as a canvas. And if I was to paint a canvas and just paint a big black mark at the bottom of it, it really draws away the attention from it. So it doesn't help a lot. It's overwhelming too much substrate. And I know that's probably the only thing the judges really marked off on this, because her plants are really nice, her fish were a really good touch, and then you can tell she's trying to do more of a black water tank. That's why it's kind of a little cloudy, which can happen in more of a wood dominant tank. The only thing I suggested to her to elevate this scape was to, take most of that substrate back, and then she has those two beautiful pieces of wood that she could have created a natural path to go through that, and it would have drawn more attention through it and actually drew your eyes. Right now it's just kind of like, it's very beautiful to look at, but it doesn't draw you anywhere. She had really created a really good shadow on the right piece of wood. There's really great work there. There's no problem with that. It's just there's no depth to it, and she didn't fill the entire aquascape. There's so much empty voidness, which I see a lot of people struggled with, because these are taller tanks. So you do have to take that into toll when you're doing an aquascaping contest. And it's shorter, not as wide as you'd want with the height. You still got to take that into toll and maybe change up the. I've had to think on the fly with that, because tanks are different in some, aquascaping contests, and I've fallen short multiple times where it's like hard to fill a tank when it's taller. And the only way to usually achieve that is by using woods with rocks, and it elevates it, which makes it really hard to make it look natural as well.
I know that that's something that is fun and also can be somewhat problematic when you're doing these live aquascaping competitions. Is you have what's there, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't aquascape the tank you wish you had. You have to aquascape the tank you have, and you've got to use the materials that are available. And sometimes there's a limited amount of materials available. So, like, being able to think on your feet and on the fly is really paramount when you're doing these aquascaping competitions. I know Ashley also has a really strong artistic vision. And she really enjoys storytelling. Like, I've worked with her for a couple of, Pisces has worked with her on a couple of projects now. And she definitely comes into it with a vision. And that's incredibly powerful for her. But I think sometimes, maybe for this one in particular, like, she had some issues because she didn't have the number of plants she wanted. And I think her wood kept floating, right?
Yeah,
So,
like, that's a big problem.
So the ability to be more flexible when her initial vision wasn't something that she could carry out is something that's super important if you're aquascaping in a live competition.
Yeah, she was also really busy with her booth, so that played a big role.
Oh yeah,
well.
she had a booth also.
Yeah.
Oh man, you aquascapers who are also selling during the show, I'm like, that's a new level of hating yourself. I think I didn't even get around to really see the aquascape at all, and we had a booth. I can't imagine having to aquascape while running a booth. That's insane. Yeah. So that she had some extra hurdles that she had to cross. Anything else?
No, that's an overall. It's not too bad of a tank. It's just a little tweaking here and there, and it could have been right there along the top three.
Yep. And God, those quarries were beautiful. I wish you could see them better in that picture. I have some videos, but we'll have to post them on our social media. All right, who do we want to talk about next? I have Nathan's. Is that a good one?
Yeah.
To move to? All right, Nathan is another aquascaper that we have worked with a couple of times, and I think we'll have a couple more projects going on with him in the future. Let me resize this a bit so you guys can see the whole tank. All right, Nathan Shelby.
Yes. So I'm pretty sure this was pretty close up there. He had to have been in like 4th or 5th place. This is one of my favorite tanks. Overall, this is a triangular scape. So there was not much wrong with this scape. I just believe that it fell short on impact for some people. I would have put this in my top 3 because I enjoyed it a lot. I love the negative space that's created in a triangular scape. And this really does look like a sunken tree to me that has started to rot. I did talk to Nathan. The good thing is when you're staring at it from a front view, you can't see the flaws that I had seen that maybe the judges did see. In the back left corner is actually a bunch of substrate built up. I told him if you would have had lowered that, right through that tree would have been a good focal point, which would have really elevated the scape just a little bit more and might have just pushed him a little bit. It was really cool to see all these holes in the tree when he was first building it too.
I know that's something that I see, like whenever I see the competitive aquascapes, is the ones that seem to rank high seem to have like these holes where it's a completely different scene behind it. Like it's not just that the hole goes into darkness, it's that you see something through the hole.
Yep, it makes you just continuously look. That's what you want with focal points. With a triangular scape, there's usually just the scape itself is the focal point. So it was really good for it. It could have just been a little bit better with a focal point. Beyond it, it would have just given it a little bit more. But the planting's good. I would say the only thing.
I love the plants in this. I love how he like starts with the smaller ones and goes to bigger ones. Of course, I don't know about the plant species and where they belong in here, if it's going to like overgrow it. But I love on this left-hand side those plants there.
Yeah. Oh, everything is pretty good. The only one I don't like is the where the branch comes down is that plant down there. That would have been better at the base and could have kept an illusion a little. It looks like it's holding it. It's not, but it looks like it. So it's drawing your attention to it.
It definitely becomes a focal point, an unintentional focal point, right?
Yeah. So I think the judges were probably just like a little put off by that. But like, see how there's not that much substrate in the front. Really creates it looking like a big tank, like really deep. And I mean, these branches aren't much bigger than what Ashley had. So you could see the difference in the substrate in the front gives it that more illusion of it being deeper. And it's just.
And he goes all the way to the water line, right? That's something we talked about last week, is like not cutting off before the water line, making sure that you continue all the way to the water line.
Exactly. And this goes out of the water line. Now, they don't judge out of it, but you'd rather go out than you would cutting it off, because it's just so unnatural, and you'll stare at it just like an unwanted focal point is what I would call them.
And when you say triangular aquascape, like the reason why I think, and you clarify this, so tell me if I'm wrong, that triangular tends to be a good one is because triangular means that you're going to go across that grid that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. So you hit the upper third and a lower third on the opposite side. So you have the two opposing focal points covered.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just that, it's just appeasing to the eye, something that flows. So triangular scapes usually tend to flow really well because you're bringing something from here to here, it's flowing. So you can really mess up with triangular scapes and not have flow, but it's pretty hard to do so. I think these are the easier scapes to achieve, to make look more natural and flow. And that's why people really do tend to like them, because they remind them of nature so well.
Yeah, like I think that a triangular type shape is, if it's your first aquascaping competition, seems to be like a good safe choice to for your first time, right? Like you
Oh
can
yeah.
always get creative and crazy with ideas, but if you have somewhat of a triangular shape, you're going to naturally hit some aesthetic principles that is going to improve the way things look.
Yes, it is easier to achieve than to achieve diorama, and that's what we'll get to with the next thing to explain on how much more difficult it is to do a diorama than it is a triangular um, nature scape.
Um, I think he also has a good amount of negative space here. Like we talked about that in one of the other tanks last week. So on the side with the Pisces sticker and the glass cages sticker, like it comes forward, but then there's like this triangular openness on the opposite side.
Yeah.
How does someone decide how much negative space they should have and where it should
Um,
occur?
I think that kind of just plays in toll in what they're trying to achieve. That it always comes different for each person. And I think some people want to use more and don't realize that they didn't use as much until you fill it up. I'll tell you right now, it's like a real big illusion when you're building a scape, and then you go to fill up with water, and you're like, wait, there's so much negative space still, and I didn't realize it because it will look. It's weird how it like doesn't magnify it. It like does the opposite, where you look like you have less in the tank than you thought you did.
Interesting.
But
So the
it
negative
really
space gets magnified, not the stuff in the tank.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's really cool. I would say I would want this one to be a little bit bigger, personally for me, just to make it a more impact. Um, he could have just brought the tree out just a little bit more, but overall, there's nothing wrong with it. It would have just took up a little bit more of the tank and made it even look bigger.
Um, so where is the line? Is there a line between negative space and being too empty? Like,
Not always. Sometimes you can make that negative space bigger and it'll look good. It's all like next week we'll probably talk about the other tank that has a bunch of negative space, and it was really appeasing to everybody at the show.
it was my People's
Not,
Choice winner. No, it
right.
wasn't.
Not
It was my
not so
second one.
yeah, not so much an aquascape win, but it was so beautiful that you would want to have it at your house and have fish schooling around it. So it really depends. But in an aquascaping contest, you really do want to film as much as you can. So too much negative space can definitely deter, and you can lose real fast if someone uses all the space and you used a lot of negative space. So in aquascaping, they want you to use like every possible angle that you can to make it look good. And sometimes we've had the opposite where they were like just picked an island, but it looked really nice and appeasing. So it really depends on how you play it out, and it really could change.
It's like, this might be a silly analogy, but I remember years ago I used to watch Dancing with the Stars, or like So You Think You Can Dance or something like that. I remember one of the judges, their critique of someone who I thought was an amazing dancer was that they didn't use enough of the stage. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like, it might be thinking of this tank as a stage, and you want to use as much of the stage as you can to showcase your ability to aquascape. Like of course we can aquascape a smaller portion, but the ability to aquascape into more of the stage is going to be more meaningful to a judge.
Yeah, and a way to look at it is, especially if you go to aquascaping contests, just look up a couple contests online. The ILAPC, AGA does one, and I would look at the competition photos and take into toll that they use every inch of this tank. It's
Yeah,
very
they
rare
do.
that you see negative space, and if you do see negative space, it's the front of the tank. It's not the left side. It's not the right side. It's the front of the tank because it gives it an illusion that it's so big. It's this giant place that they just crammed into a tiny little tank. And you'll see that like the middle might look like it's got negative space because of the way they built the aquascape around it, but they're using every inch of it. It's really confusing to kind of explain, but once you see a aquascape, you'll understand a little bit better.
So it's almost like the negative space is in the layering, not in the actual left to right.
Yeah, layering is the number one thing that will get you way higher in the level of aquascaping. It is the hardest thing to achieve, and no matter how many times, like, we have done different aquascapes, and we thought, oh wow, this looks like it's got so much dimension, so many layers, and then you break it down, and you're like, okay, well maybe that's only 3 layers. Oh, I've only done 2 layers here, and like if I was to do 5 layers, I'm gonna bring this to a whole nother, field, and it's a lot to think about. It's harder to break it down in layers. So like visually looking, like I see this base layer, then the next one, and for us visually doing it, you think you built a lot of it, but you don't. Usually when you go to the front of your tank and you're like, man, there's only a couple layers here.
Yeah, and like it's just about immersing the viewer, the judge, right? And the more layers you have, the more immersed, like the more they have to unravel in their head. And when you see them sitting there staring at the tank, like it's just more for them to think through.
Yeah.
So for this one, like really the key is going to be drawing a viewer's eye through the aquascape, and by making some of these holes feel more like holes and not just empty space or a dark cavern.
Yeah, and even the cavern's fine, but I can see the plants behind it, which is cool because it kind of like gives up the illusion that the tree's rotting and the plants are growing through it, which could give you that cool focal point. But like personally, I would run with this scape. Honestly, like if I was to take this, I love this idea absolutely to a T. I love it. What I would have done was just built it out more and then created more pockets in the wood and like that it's rotting and that you can see through it, because it kind of just gives you illusion of the forest behind it or something. So that it's like a giant
tree root, and not a little limb.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So our next person is Nguyen Li. Let me get his pulled up. And he's Splashy Fish. He actually just recently started carrying our products. So he is officially a Aqua Natural reseller, wholesaler, whatever you call it. Right. Making this fill the space. All right, so the first thing about this one that we both noticed when we were pulling these up earlier is this one's very similar to the People's Choice Award. Tell us about this one, Shelby.
Yes, I love dioramas. Honestly, like me and Grant always try to do dioramas because they're so interesting to look at. They really do get the people's eyes. Like,
tell people what diorama is again. What about? I'm assuming this is a diorama, right? Okay.
Instead of wood, because rock you can create an illusion that it looks like a mountain or a cavern or crevice or something like that, where you can't necessarily do that with trees. It can be done, but it's taking something that looks gigantic and putting it smaller into it, and mainly using rocks. So if you choose to do a whole rockscape, it is much harder to achieve, which you wouldn't think so because rocks are so much larger, they can fill up so much space, but they're really hard to work with when you get into a tank, and making them go the right way, making them work together, and to build it up. That is the biggest struggle, I would say, doing any diorama with rocks, is building it up, and that's kind of where this tank fell short. Is you can tell that they use the substrate to try to raise it up, but it's still,
he had actually came to us and asked for a piece of rock that we had on the table, and I never went back to him to tell him he could have it. Whoops. I just remembered him coming and telling me that because they had ran out of the Dragonstone.
Oh yeah, I think he did come get it later.
Okay.
I don't know if he used it or what happened with that, but I do believe he did come and get it, or at least a smaller piece. So that could have been an issue with his tank and not being able to build it out the way he wanted to. It was not enough rock. That can happen a lot in aquascaping, where I would have just changed my mind at that point and went with the rock that has the most, which might not also be the easiest rock to work with. It might be a lot harder. Dragonstone is very easy because it's got its grooves. They all tend to go the same way. They all tend to have like a really easy way to get them to flow, where some other rocks that are more round or bigger or larger are really hard to make line up and look natural and beautiful.
And that lining up piece is important because when we talk about nature, the way rocks are formed, like they're not going to be formed with them all being in a different direction, unless there's been like a rock fall or something, right? Like if we look at a mountain, the whole mountain is going to have, guess I should be going this way. The whole mountain is going to have, it's all going to be have formed in the same direction, and the same lines and the same grooves are going to go all the way from the top to the bottom, from left to right. So when you're trying to create this mountain look, you need to think about what a mountain actually looks like.
Yeah, because they all formed at the same time. They didn't form two separately. There is cases where they have, and they might look. So, like, in a way, this tank here, I would say the left to right side, they're going different opposite ways, which you can play pretty well, but you have to make it harmonious, like make it work together. This kind of clashed a little bit. I think that's where the judges could have seen, like all these rocks are going this way and then this one's going this way, but they're not in the same direction. Like in the nature, it might have been a little bit slightly different. Yeah, they could have gone together. But it's still really cool. It does make an effect where like it's trying to draw your attention that way. And the use of that darker stone in the back did help a little bit. It gets you to draw your attention down the path, and it looks really nice. I do see it's a lot to do with the height of the tank and then the substrate in the front. Could have elevated it if he had taken, and this can happen all the time. I put too much substrate all the time. So
I think we've mentioned this on several of the aquascapes already, right? Like this is a tall tank. Like you've got to aquascape the tank you have.
Yeah.
And then also substrate in the front.
Yeah, so taking a tool and pushing that back into those right and left corners would have helped a little bit, because it would have made it look a lot taller. Even though it's not all the way up to the surface, it would have made it look taller. And I mean, that can easily be achieved by two rocks right in front of where that path is, and pushing the sand back would have just made it look a lot bigger. And another thing to think about, a lot of people, especially when you do a mainly rock aquascape, you're thinking about reflections is a big thing that aquascapers, that judges are looking for in a competition. So on the left and the right side, there is no reflection other than the plants. There is no rock. I can't see the rocks in the reflection, and you want to. So you need to build it closer to the sides. It's not something that's really talked about much, but in like a very big setting, that's a big deal to make it look like it's continuing from outside.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Make it look bigger.
Yeah.
Also the surface. And if you see a lot of professional tanks and the way they take their photo, they actually have mirrors and other things that play on top of the surface to give it a reflection. So it gives it a bigger illusion that this is one continuous giant aquascape. It's crazy to think about. I never thought about it for the longest time, and now I think about the reflections on the side of the tank. I try to get the rocks closer to it, but
I mean, the longer you do this, like, and the more times you practice it, like the more you're going to get these little tidbits. And hopefully like this podcast, the live stream that we're doing will help people as they're doing this to grow faster as they realize that these are some of the things that a judge is going to be looking at. It's really a lot of information, but hopefully those of you who are catching up with us every single week, like it just starts to become like second nature.
It's a lot of practice to take too. I'm still learning. I've gotten some of my rock work is getting better and better, but I'm still falling short on filling up my own tank. Like I just did up an aquascape and I'm like, this is great. This is perfect. I filled it up and I'm like, it's short. And I can't go back and I can't fix it because you have a time restraint, you know? So it's one of those things that this could have happened where he didn't have enough rock, he didn't have enough time, and this could have been even more magnificent, you know, and had a better plan for like this completely being filled out on this side and this side, and it could have been right up there at the top.
The nano aquarium guy made a point using a different kind of rock underneath the substrate. So, and I think that's what he's like. This is a problem that a lot of people fell into because they were such tall tanks. They try to use a lot of substrate to build the height, and instead of just using a different rock to build the height. So that's a really good piece of advice too.
It's perfect because that's what I did on my last game too. Is they didn't have enough of the elephant skin stone. It's very rare to come by it, but they had giant other pieces of stone that no one's using. And I was like, you know what? That giant piece of stone is going to take up so much room, and you can hide it. And instead of using all that substrate just comes forward. And a lot of people don't realize that when you're building. I fell short of this so many times where it looks like it's all packed in there. It looks like it's good. Sand shifts so easily when you go to fill up. That's why if you see an aquascaper filling up their tank really slowly, it's so that they don't have too much shifting of the sand. And they're just praying for the best. It happened, and I had a lot of substrate in those other ones, but if you fill it up with mainly rock and you fill in the crevices with rock too, you don't have the sand shift to the front, and that's what can happen real easily when you fill up is all that sand drops down and ruins your aquascape because you didn't plug it in or make sure that it wasn't going to come. So nano is 100% correct. Use other rocks. They don't necessarily need to see it. Like in the back right of this tank, he could have used a bunch of different stones to build up that one piece of dragon stone, and then putting little ones in front of it. You would never know that it's not a gigantic piece of dragon stone back there. You would just think that it's buried, you know?
What about the plants in this one?
The planting is overall a good choice. I wouldn't have necessarily put the stems in the far left back because you're trying to create the illusion to go back. Usually you want smaller for dioramas like this in the back because it gives you that, oh, what's back there? It's too big in the back. So what they would have done is stems towards the front, left, and then did smaller plants to the back in the path.
So this is one of those times where some of the other advice we've given where it's small in the front, tall in the back, we want the opposite because the idea is this is a mountain. It's like if you're drawing a picture of a mountain, the trees in the background get smaller. They don't get bigger than the ones in the foreground. It tricks your brain. It's like an optical illusion you're creating, right?
Yep. And if you are to do where you want the smaller plants in the front, just do all smaller plants. Don't put stems in there. Just do smaller, like Crypt Barbara in the front, and then the rest Monte Carlo, because it could give it like that Iwagumi feeling too. Because you could also win with that.
And what do you mean when you say Iwagumi feeling?
Minimalist, so it's less rocks and just like a few rocks here and there, and then mainly just shorter plants. Sometimes you can put like taller plants around the main centerpiece of the Iwagumi, which will just be like one giant rock. But I would have put all just smaller plants. Makes the rocks look larger than life, where now you put the stem and kind of shortened it.
Yeah. So I think like it just really, you've got to know what kind of aquascape you're going for, right? Like you have to you have to have a vision. You have to know what's expected of that vision, but also you need to be flexible and work with what you have. And if your plan isn't working, you have to be willing to pivot.
That's why my motto is to go with the flow, and it's so cheesy, and it sounds so cringy every time I say it, but it's the only way I know how to work, because every time I've gone in with a plan, I've gotten so fixated on that plan that I would get so overwhelmed, and I'm like, I can't do it, and if you get stuck on that, then you lose so much time trying to create something that you're not going to be able to with the materials that you have. So you have to change. You have to go with the flow. It's like fighting the current that you're never going to get up. It's exhausting. It's not worth your time. And turn around and go with the flow.
Well, I think that's our time. I let us go a little bit longer today since we were having issues with the audio. I think that these aquascapes were absolutely stunning.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot to learn when we do these. I'm very excited. So we're not going to be live streaming this upcoming Thursday because we'll be traveling to Reefstock, Denver. And there we are going to be sponsoring the aquascaping competition there. And it's actually going to be a macroalgae aquascaping competition. So it's going to be a little different than what we've seen in the past. And I think who's the 3 people aquascaping in that?
So it is going to be Tiger Boy, which
Dennis.
Dennis. That's all I know him. If you look him on Instagram, he's so good with macroalgae. It's crazy. I've been following him for a while. Had no idea what his real name was.
Yeah, I've been friends with him for many years. There's nobody else I go to about macroalgae. He's the first person I call. He is a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Like, it's honestly just breathtaking.
Yeah, he's also just his photography also. He's just an artist with his photography and the aquascaping. So it's a double whammy with him.
Yeah, and then you got him, which is also the same. Very good at photography, very good at making things look really good, and very unique style. I've always liked his style because it's always so different and unique, and I beg for that in the aquarium hobby, in aquascaping. Usually it's, you need to color in the lines in aquascaping. So I'm enjoying him coloring out of the lines and showing other people that there is something different. So I've enjoyed most of his work,
and I think his Instagram name is what? Ichthophile? His Instagram name is Ichthophile or something like that?
Like ichthyologist,
Mm-hmm.
Ichthophile. Yeah, it's hard to pronounce. But yeah, you gotta check him out too. His is really cool. And then, of course, I'm sad to say that I'm the one who has to compete against those 2 people. So,
I'm excited to see you competing. It's going to be amazing.
yeah, this will be my first macroalgae. We have wanted one for so long, and we've done a lot, and I've been researching even more now about them because I've been wanting them forever. We do have some macroalgae in the house, but it's only in our Okalula tank. That's about it, and it's hard to come by, so it's not something that I've just seen and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta have. Most of the time I just find it in a bowl at a show or something.
Yeah, when they first mentioned macroalgae, that was my biggest concern. I was like, where are y'all getting it from? Like, and let me know so I can go buy some for my macroalgae tank. I'm like, so yeah, I'm really excited. So Shelby will be the 3rd contestant. So it's going to be kind of small because macroalgae is hard to come by. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully that's something that grows in the coming months and years, and that there starts to be more people growing it as the people who are wanting to keep it at home increases. I think that there's a huge business opportunity there for some people.
Yeah.
And what's your Instagram?
Shelby K Scapes.
Spell escapes because K has an E at the end, which I love.
Which is actually my middle name, so everyone always thinks it says escapes, and I was like, no, that's my middle name.
It's such a good play on words that, like, I wish you did just say Shelby K escapes.
Yeah.
It's very cute. So I think everybody in this competition has brought something unique. We have a lot to learn. We have 3 more still to talk about, and we'll do that the week after Reef Talk Denver, and then hopefully we'll dig into the macroalgae aquascaping competition, and then we'll get back to the regularly scheduled program for a bit. If you really want to improve your layouts, you don't want to miss any of our episodes. We've got a whole list of content plan that we haven't even gotten to yet because we've been focusing on the competitions. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram, and look for us for aquascaping tips. And remember, looking for the best natural aquascaping materials, Aqua Natural has got you covered. Anything else you want to add, Shelby?
No, that's it. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Thank you, guys. We will see y'all in 2 weeks. Bye. Swim with Pisces.